How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Random Side Quest. It is that time again, and we are back to talk about all the lore of this amazing game. And yeah, okay. Whew. We've been a little bit into Forbidden West now. Want to say hi to the people waiting in the chat. Looks like we got Jetty, EG, Danielle, Sweet, Jack. Good to see everybody coming in here and spending some time with us. Gary, how's it going? But yeah, I'm not sure how you guys are enjoying it. I think a lot of people have already kind of completed the game at this point. But if you haven't, just know that there will be spoilers in this stream for the main story of the game, for side quests, really whatever you guys want to get into. And that's really kind of what's on the agenda for today. Connor, first time catching you live. Thank you very much. Well, I'm glad that you were able to make it. Mylanite, hello from the Zenith Island. Hello. I can't believe you survived. But yeah, it is time to talk about Forbidden West. Last time we spoke, the channel was not quite at 25K yet. We've passed that milestone. We're working towards 26, so that should be really cool. Sweet. I haven't played the game yet, so I won't stay long. Just wanted to show my support. Well, thank you very much, Sweet. We appreciate your patronage and hanging out here and getting into it a little bit. Hope you can play the game very soon. Hello from Northern Ireland, from the UK, from Portugal, Scotland. My gosh, this is always the thing that really just it's so crazy to me about kind of just doing this thing and just how many people love the game and how awesome you guys are, which is awesome. Tim finished and platinumed the game with 100% last week. Congratulations. They confirmed a third game, so surprised. Yeah, they left this one a bit on a cliffhanger, so I'm very happy that had this. EG, hello, I'm sick with a cold. RSQ Scream is the best metagen. EG, I'm so sorry that you're sick, but we're happy that you're able to get your lore fix a little bit today. Greetings from Brazil. Excited to discuss some juicy lore at 1 a.m. Dang, Ron, you are a trooper. But yeah, I am here to talk about what you want to talk about. I'm here to answer your lore questions, kind of get into some speculation maybe about some of the big things. So far away. Greetings from Chile. Wow, that's awesome. San, absolutely love your channel. Thank you very much. Hello from Park City, Utah, future headquarters of FAS. Yeah, he's Ted is a little bit young right now. I think Ted, he was born in 2013, so he's 7, 8, 9. He's 9 years old now, I think so. So yeah, look out for like a really kind of business savvy 9-year-old. Let's see here. Gary asks, I'm curious what they are going to do for the DLC because there's a few things that I can go with as for the post game. There's a couple things that I think would make for a good DLC. Obviously, I think the Quen would make for a really good DLC, but also it would make a really good second game. I popped into Kirsty's Focus stream the other day and kind of talked about that. I would really love a DLC around Uriv, which is the Sun King who went to the Forbidden West in the first place. Sundown, hello from Bryce, Utah. Ooh, the future site of the Zero Dawn staging facility. Very cool. What do you think of the choices to put Aloy in the Shield Weaver to start Horizon Forbidden West? I think it makes sense. Just because everybody worked really hard to get that armor, so if you were going to put her in an armor set, one that was reminiscent of the Shield Weaver, I didn't mind that. RSQ, do we know what caused the original glitch that made the robots lose control? That is a really good question that is not confirmed in the game at this point. There's a lot of speculation. Could be something concerning Letopolis, which is pretty kind of heavy in the cyber nuke category, so it could be something that they were developing there that was in the swarm that went rogue within the systems to make it glitch. There's a lot of speculation as far as potentially Vast Silver out there. I've definitely thought along those lines, so we'll just have to wait and see. There's nothing concrete yet. Sweet, thank you so much for your donation. You have a great time, so happy you reached 25K. I'll see you another time live. Yes, hope you get to play the game and finish it very soon. I think the DLC is south of the Hoover Dam. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation going around about the burning shores. It's a very obscure lore mention that only pops up a couple times in the Gildan data point. And I think in the Bryn data point, actually, they kind of talk a little bit about the burning shores. I wish I had more for you guys as far as what that actually entails, but a lot of people have speculated Los Angeles, California, kind of somewhere else on the West Coast. Either way, it'll be really interesting, especially since Forbidden West was foreshadowed in Zero Dawn in its own data points. They do have a history of talking about future locations within the lore of the game. There was a good video I just watched that had some good speculation about the DLC referring to the Burning Shores. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people are talking about that. Who would even build such deadly machines? Hephaestus. Do you think we will see an active Metal Devil in the third game? If there was ever a chance for it, I think this would be it. I've seen people kind of talking a little bit about potentially firing up some Horus-class Titans in order to battle whatever Nemesis is bringing our way. That would be pretty interesting. Do you believe Nil will be in the DLC, The Burning Shores? I was surprised he was in Forbidden West, but I was happy to see him. I hope his role is expanded. Nil is a very interesting character that I want to know more about. He and Fashav are the only two known survivors of the Battle of Cinnabar Sands. So I would like to know, obviously, more about Nil's story, especially since that's not even his real name. That was a name that he kind of took on when he was in the prison of Sunstone Rock in the Sundom. So I would love to know more about Nil. I think he's a very enigmatic character. I'm wondering if there's something off with Apollo. What if Far Zenith code is too strong for Gaia to remove, or something else? That's the thing. Man, because Apollo was... I think there's a definitive difference. They had the Apollo archive and alpha build on the Odyssey. Whether or not they had full access to the sub-function as it was intended to be used within the Zero Dawn infrastructure is a entirely different subject. I think it's very much along the lines of we don't really know right now because it's only touched on actually very briefly. You kind of just finished the game, spoilers, and it's like, oh, guess what? Sylens is kind of starting to sift through what's left in Apollo. I'll have to check on the wall because I think within the base, the command center, Regional Command Center 9, it has that image of what subfunctions are merged with Gaia, and I'll have to double check and see if Apollo is there. Is Nil even Karja? I believe so. He was part of the Karja army, but who knows? He could have just gone there to slake his bloodlust, especially at that time in his life. So that's kind of up for debate. What are your thoughts on the new NPCs that joined Aloy's party? Zoe, Katalo, Alva. I really liked all of them. I think my favorite out of the three would be Katalo. I think he really grew on me, and the arc that he and Aloy took I thought was really, really awesome. I really think that he did such a good job in kind of articulating the kind of your connection, your personal connection outside of Hekaro with the Tenakth, and that kind of quiet nobility and ferocity. I think Katalo is definitely my favorite. Let's see here. RSQ, do you think some tribes will refuse the Apollo archive, or the Quen might change it to their liking or benefit? That's the thing, right? I think there's a couple tribes out there that definitively either would not appreciate it or just not care. I don't think the Banuk are entirely against that kind of knowledge. I just don't think they'd be particularly interested. I think the Nora would absolutely shun that kind of knowledge of the old world. That's pretty indicative of their culture. I think the Oseram would probably embrace it just because it would help. They're very practical in trying to become better at what they do. The Karja, I think, would probably be okay with it. However, it might kind of fundamentally mess with some of their religious beliefs. And I think that obviously the Quen would be all for it. However, what got leaked to the public is entirely different than what the Board of Overseers would deem to be heretical or forbidden knowledge. Let's see here. Do you think we will go to South America for DLC? Sylens is looking at something in the area in the end credits. South America, that's interesting. I'm not sure. I think the world really opened up with the arrival of the Quen and the ability to traverse oceans. So really, it really kind of depends on what you're hoping to find there. And we know very little about South America in the lore. We know that the swarm crossed the Strait of Magellan up through South America into North America during the Faro Plague. But outside of that, it's not mentioned a whole lot. I want some proper lore behind Nil and Horizon 3. Hey, if he's still kicking around, I think that's a definite thing. Hi, Chili. Do you think we have heard the last of Ted and his machinations? Do you also buy the theory that the Burning Shores is a destination for a DLC? I do. I think there's a definite possibility there. Do I think we've heard the last of Ted? I think as far as his life story is concerned, yes. But just for how influential he is, I would imagine that we're still going to be finding FAS projects and different remnants of facilities. It was the largest corporation in the 21st century. So I wouldn't be surprised if we found out more about Ted, but whether or not, he's alive or not, I think he is definitively, as far as his mortality is concerned, closed. Let's see. Do you think Ted was originally a member of Far Zenith, but had to be pulled off and left behind to oversee Zero Dawn? That's a really interesting question, because Far Zenith was always this organization of 77 of the world's most wealthy and powerful people. So in the back of my mind, there was always this thing of like, maybe Ted would be a part of Far Zenith, but also I wouldn't be surprised if Ted thought he was too good for Far Zenith. I think that he was very much building his own empire, and even if he was part of Far Zenith, maybe Zero Dawn had a part to play as far as like not getting aboard the Odyssey, but also it seems like they oversold that flight, to be honest. You kind of get some hints to the fact that really the only public member known in the 21st century of Far Zenith was Oswald Dalgard, who was the founder and CEO of All Seeing Hollow. And it sounds like they killed him. Far Zenith killed him before he was able to actually board the Odyssey, and they just kind of used old pieces of audio pieced together to emulate him until they were, until they departed. So I think Ted probably wasn't part of Far Zenith, principally because his ego might have been even too big for that organization. I would have preferred to have seen Ted's final form, says Tim. I have to respectfully disagree. I know this is a big topic of contention amongst the community. I'm always of the opinion that what you don't show usually tends to be a lot better than what they show you, especially since you kind of get a glimpse of what Ted might become, but there's a definite risk of jumping the shark. I always compare it to like Jaws, right? If you've ever seen Jaws, the best parts of Jaws are the parts where you don't see the shark, and it's not the movie's fault. It's just what you don't see tends to be a little bit more harrowing. Where do you think the Quen come from? Asks Chris. That is also a big topic of debate. I've heard a lot of people say Hawaii, but there might be a good chance that I don't see them investing in putting a Cradle in Hawaii, no offense. I mean, Aletheia 9 sounds like was intended for the entirety of North America, or at the very least, the western side of North America. So you had to basically pick 9 locations if Aletheia 9 is the last one, which I think it is, just geographically the way the swarm moved. So to kind of place a Cradle in Hawaii doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and thus the Quen being there doesn't make a ton of sense to me as far as where they're originally from. I would say that you're either looking at Aletheia 1 or Aletheia 2, so you're looking at either kind of the southwest or southeast coast of Africa in Mozambique. I forget the name of the mountain, but there's a Cradle there, and also in China. So it really depends on what you look like. And I know people are trying to reference back to like the Great Delta that's mentioned when people are talking about the Leviathan kind of project and its relationship with Omarumba. But it's also important to note that the geography of the world has changed a lot. So what may have been there before could have drastically changed. So it could be something totally different. But it is an old world infrastructure. So trying to find some kind of Great Delta. And both of those, I've looked into both of them, and they seem to fit in their own ways, but we'll kind of see. I'm interested to see kind of where the Quen come from as well. And it's even harder to trace back where the Quen come from, because it's not like they set out on some random exploratory mission and landed on the place that was closest to where they were setting off from. Their goal was always to go to San Francisco. So just trying to backtrack, knowing that no matter where they were, they had to get there, it's hard to say. Do you think we will find / explore Miriam tech? Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Vista points, all of them really are in relation to Miriam technology. And if you've seen our first Legends video of the 4 that we've put out, it is all about Miriam, so be sure to check that out. It adds a lot of insight that we didn't have before with just Zero Dawn. Some people theorize that the Quen came from Vietnam because it's a Vietnamese word. Well, they might have seen through their focuses at some point. That's an interesting piece. I'll have to look into that. That's the thing, too, about the Quen, right? They can really pick and choose what part of old world culture they want to adapt their society to. So it's not even necessarily regional that they're even locked into, like a lot of the tribes that we've come to know in Horizon. Yeah, the Quen are from Atlantis. That would be pretty sweet. Do you think we could see a future for the Sons of Prometheus, perhaps as an enemy faction that Sylens lost control of? I'm not sure. If you complete that side quest line with the bandit camps, you do eventually come face to face with Asera, who's the leader of the Sons of Prometheus. But wherever there's Karja animosity, you have the potential for Aloy to be fighting somebody. And there's a lot of Karja animosity post-Red Raids, and justifiably so, right? No matter what you think of Regala or the Sons of Prometheus, the Karja did take something near and dear from them. Same with Dervahl. They all lost a lot at the hands of Red Raiders and the Mandate of Duran. So, you know, Avad, as noble as his pursuits are, and as much as I think he's a really good Sun King, he's fighting an uphill battle because just how long that violence went on and how brutal that era was. It's hard to just bury the hatchet. Like, I see where those villains are coming from. We not visit the tribes of the east coast of the U.S. I think at this point they've dedicated themselves to this side of the continent. Whether they find an excuse to go east, it would be interesting. I think that, I don't know. I would love to see some of those ruins, but I do see, especially with the introduction of kind of seafaring travel, that we might expand a little bit more outside of North America. Kirsty's focus in the house, everybody. Howdy, Kirsty. Let's see. Data points mention English-speaking expats working in China will leave relics that could be understood without a focus. The thing about a focus is it is a universal translation device, so that does help as far as just kind of interpreting regional dialects. But yeah, if you guys didn't know, with the rise of automation, there are some data points that essentially say that a lot of North Americans moved to China in search of work that just was no longer available stateside. They had lunar mining operations that were there, which is pretty nuts. But eventually those jobs ran out too, which is, there's a large theme of automation and robotics in this game. So that definitely starts in the 21st century and carries through to the 31st. Let's see here. Yes. Oh man. There's two things, GJ, that I was really hoping for. One was more about Erive, the Sun King, and more about Rost, because Rost did venture into the Forbidden West on his death-seeking mission, and I would love to have run into somebody, some Tenakth, who's like, oh yeah, you're not the first Nora that I've met. And it's like, what? It's like, oh yeah, this super uber BA guy was out here like hunting down some somebody. I think it would be really cool to just even have like a data point or a dialogue tree that would dive a little bit more into Rost's backstory at that time. Hephaestus has become more powerful since he got in touch with Zenith technology. We still need him by our side, but I think this relationship will be more like an alliance. What do you think? Hephaestus has definitely morphed into something even greater than what we knew from Zero Dawn and the Frozen Wilds and Epsilon and part of the Cauldron Network. So yeah, it's hard to say how we're gonna wrangle him, especially if we're going with like the heuristic density kind of thing that we've been going after, because Hades had a pretty significant heuristic density, and there's no more Hades subfunctions left. We destroyed the last one. It seems like all the ones in the Hades Proving Lab were corrupted. So even if Hades was around, you'd need more heuristic density. So maybe you're talking about something like Cyan, or you're talking about another AI, or potentially that's your kind of key to Vast Silver, depending on whether you think VS is going to be an ally or an enemy. I think that would be really pretty interesting. Do you want more Quen armor for Aloy? Heck yes, I want more Quen. I want some Quen armor for Aloy. I don't think we get any. All the Tenakth ones and Utaru ones are really, really cool. I just like those in general. I don't want to throw shade on the Oseram. For Aloy's build, I'm always kind of like, it's. I think my favorite armor, even though it's not the best, was the Tenakth Marshal armor. I think that one was really cool. Let's see. I thought Quen was a play on Queen for the Queen Quen. Maybe the Quen are just so interesting in that way that it's hard to trace back exactly what they've chosen to keep from the cultures that they've learned about through the legacy. Where you can trace back, Meridian means, the highest point in the sky for the sun. So, it makes sense that they named their city that. The Banuk are named after Banu Kai, who is their kind of founder of their tribe. So it's just hard given the information that we have right now. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some corporation that is named Quen or Quen something that they first discovered their focuses in, and then everything kind of was built from that, because they are so very much enthralled with that era of human history. They really need a transmog system for this game. Tribes, such good armor. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I do like those systems in other games where you can kind of slap whatever cosmetics you want on the perk set that you think is best. What are your thoughts on a story-based shooter game, possibly co-op, based on Enduring Victory? I would like to see it. I'm not sure whether or not Guerrilla is going to invest the resources, but especially with their background in the Killzone franchise, you could either do Enduring Victory or you could do the Hot Zone Crisis. I think both of those would be really good. The Hot Zone Crisis might be a little bit less depressing. Well, no, they actually both end really depressing. Yeah, I don't know. That's the problem with there's not a lot of hope in those shooters. So if you're okay just kind of going in knowing that everybody that is pivotal and important is going to die, then I guess, yeah, you might enjoy that. But it might, as fun as it might be pretty hopeless as far as the tone of the story is concerned, like much of that era is in Horizon's lore. Do you wish the Banuk made an appearance? I do. The Banuk, I'm not quiet about it. The Banuk are my favorite tribe, but they did get a whole DLC dedicated to them that was amazing. So I understand that they want to shed some love and some light on some other tribes as well. So I'm always in for more Banuk, but I get why that wasn't there. Oseram armor was my favorite, e.g. Yeah, everybody's got their own style. Let's see here. Ron asks, I'm wondering if we're not done with far as Zenith yet, because Beta said there might be more members in the spaceship and orbiter around space. Yeah, I think that might be something interesting where, like a side kind of quest, almost like what the Eclipse were in this game. Like there's one Zenith that got away and still has their shields and is wreaking havoc, and I think that might be something. But as far as like the Zeniths, oh man, like most of them apparently died getting off of Sirius, and then I think, what is it, like 14 or 15 were able to make it to Earth. And obviously a number of them died. Some people aren't totally convinced that Tilda died because it's semi off screen. You don't get to really see it. So I think that I don't think that'll be a pivotal piece of the next game or DLC, but it could definitely be like a side quest of just kind of like cleaning up the last remnants of the faction. Yay Banuk, says Maddie. Yeah, I'm all with you. Our enemies are prey. Why did Minerva have more towers in the Forbidden West? That's a really good question. I think, Yeah, I really don't have an answer for you as far as like how many actual transmission arrays Minerva had across the world. Is kind of up for speculation at this point. I would say the best guess you might have is to go back and look at the data point, the good news, and maybe try to see where those pings are at that point. But there's no real concrete evidence that the images being shown are definitive, like, hey, here's where everything is. Because if you look at the cradles, like there's a ton of different dots that pop up for the cradles. So I think it was more of a PR tool than anything else. But I don't know. That's a really good question. Like once again, we kind of see like one Zero Dawn facility for a lot of things around this, at least the section of the world that we've been allowed to explore, like Elysium 9, Regional Command Center 9. So, there could be as many Minerva towers as there are cradles. But since they were built after 0 Day, it's kind of up for speculation how many Minerva would have needed. We would have known that if we got to speak more with the subfunctions, but, sometimes you don't get what you want. Do you think Aloy will build her own machines to take on Nemesis, maybe even use a horse against it? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Without Hephaestus, it might be difficult to build a lot of machines en masse, but that might be part of it. And they were also talking, like hinting around, like using Apollo to find a workaround to create what they needed to do or to stabilize the biosphere without Hephaestus. So it really kind of depends on what you expect to see from the third game. Do you think Guerrilla, the Horizon franchise, have a future past Aloy trilogy? I do. I mean, we already have kind of Call of the Mountain being released. As far as that goes, I would not be shocked whether or not I think it's a good idea. I wouldn't be shocked at all if there was a live action adaptation into like a TV series or something, just the way that media is kind of going right now. You have like, I think The Last of Us got greenlit. The Witcher is obviously pretty successful for Netflix. These kind of video game franchises being turned into something else. So additional media maybe, but as far as video games are concerned, I would love a game set during the Red Raids. It's such an important aspect of Horizon lore that we only hear about secondhand, and it's like a decade long. And there are still very brutal machines in that time, so gameplay-wise, that would track as well, but also, you have a very real human threat in the Karja. The Meridian Tower is able to communicate in the Forbidden West, shown by our conversation with Sylens, so one in the Forbidden West is unnecessary. Yeah, it really just, we would, until you see like a full schematic of everything, it's hard to determine exactly where everything is, and I think they do that on purpose. Do you think Nemesis is traveling through space? Yeah, from what I remember, it doesn't really have a physical form. If anything, I think it's probably harnessing nanotechnology. It's highly advanced. It knows everything that Far Zenith knows because it kind of is Far Zenith, and in my opinion, probably more than that. I have my own speculations on Nemesis that I'll definitely get into deeper later on, but I do think it is definitely chasing the Odyssey in some way. How it's doing that is up for debate, but there's a really interesting video kind of discussing the timeline that I saw as far as when Nemesis might get there, so I thought that was interesting. Silver, any thoughts on why Elysium went offline before it was supposed to? Oh, yeah, I was really surprised. And that was like a throwaway line. That guy is just like, oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. It didn't really last as long as it was supposed to. I'm like, tell me more about that. For those of you who don't know, Elysium is a facility that all Zero Dawn personnel were intended to live in, who volunteered for the project, and that was kind of their reward in a sense. Obviously, the Alphas didn't make it to the facility. They were kind of trapped in Gaia Prime, but a lot of the Gamma Beta personnel made it there, but apparently it didn't make it the century it was intended to survive. As far as the reason why that happened, there was a fair amount of seismic activity that occurred between 0 Day and the 31st century, so maybe it succumbed to that. It was an underground facility. It really depends. Like, there's so much speculation on Vast Silver right now, and because a malevolent AI could, without any other checks and balances that's really advanced, could probably mess something like that up pretty easily. Yeah, I think it's, man, yeah. Elysium was supposed to last 100 years. How long did it end up lasting? I think it went offline like 30 years before it was supposed to. Don't quote me on that. I need to look at that again, but yeah. Let's see here. Do you think Nemesis can be reasoned with? I do, actually. I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but Nemesis's main enemy was Zenith. And I think there's some symbolism there as far as like what Nemesis means, because Horizon deals in a lot of symbolism beyond its game world, right? You have a Faro who is stricken by a terrible plague. You have Sobek, who is, the god, I think, of like the Nile or something that represents like new life and rebirth. There's a lot of symbolism as far as what things are supposed to, what you're supposed to glean from them. And I spent a lot of my time. A lot of people were surprised when I said, like, I think when I had like 300 hours or something into Zero Dawn, it's like, you don't have more than that? Well, a lot of my time is spent analyzing the data points in game, out of game, but also looking into things like the symbolism behind Nemesis for hints, or, what are the statues in Thebes meant to represent, and kind of trying to look beyond that. And I think if you look at, there's a data point that has basically the testimony of somebody who used to work under Peter, the founder of Zenith, and basically like what he was like. And he was very much this eccentric futurist who was very fascinated with essentially changing what the human condition means, believing that he believes in the immortal soul, and the next natural evolution is the immortality of the human mind. But in that, he was also starting to experiment in digital transcendence decently before the events of the Pharaoh plague. And what he wanted, I think, what his vision was for Zenith is eventually a lot different than what Zenith ended up being, right? Like the original Odyssey project, it's so funny. I'm going back also and reading a bunch of the Zero Dawn data points, kind of with all this new context, and just how hard they really tried to throw you off the path of Zenith was the origin of the signal. Like there's literally a whole data point explaining that the original Odyssey project is not an escape pod for the rich and famous. That's not what it's meant for. And of course, that's what it ends up being for. So the original Odyssey project was meant really as a true colony ship to introduce a new generation of human life on an exoplanet. But obviously that multi-nation coalition failed, and it was bought by Zenith. Zenith at that time, that was spearheaded by Peter. And there's a data point called Priority Shift where Peter dies. And it talks about how all of their kind of effort that was put into making the ectogenic birthing pods for the project is no longer what they're focusing on. And now they're going to be focusing on life extension therapies. So while Peter was alive, he was, I think, very much believed in this kind of optimistic view of what Zenith could be, and kind of escaping the mortal coil that way and propagating life on a different planet with that in mind. So this is a really long-winded way of getting at, I think, that Peter's personality may be the defining feature of Nemesis. And I could totally see that part of Nemesis absolutely despising what Zenith became, but ultimately isn't an enemy of humanity as a whole. Obviously, it's been twisted and manipulated because there is a lot of this self kind of destructive aspects of Zenith that all the other Zeniths kind of putting themselves into the shared consciousness would contribute. But I think the name Nemesis is incredibly telling as far as that's concerned. I can't remember off the top of my head what the god of what that means within mythology, but it's very much tied with like retribution against the bold or the unworthy, the people who are really arrogant. So that name was definitely meant as symbolism there. So I think, long story short, I do think Nemesis can be reasoned with, but I don't think it's in a clear headspace right now. We only have 5 to 8 months, give or take, before the biosphere goes down. I'm not entirely sure if reading Apollo might prove to be that useful, but slightly useful. Yeah, it really just depends on, because the game also ends on the note of everybody spreading the word of what's coming. And we kind of touched on this before, but along the lines of who's willing to accept that information and who's willing to work together to help things move forward. And I really do think that the more help you can get, the better. And I think the Osram might be the focal point of the next game as far as like the big tribe. Like in the first game, it was definitely the Karja. In this game, it was the Tenakth. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Karja and the Quen, or sorry, the Osram or the Quen, being that they're the most technologically advanced, kind of get the spotlight in the third game. But didn't Peter pass before the Zeniths went to space? They did. How would they have uploaded his mind? Well, that's we kind of touched on that before. He was experimenting with digital transcendence quite a bit before that time period. You can kind of get that information. I think it's called revisiting the mind upload. I think that's what that data point's called. And he founded a organization. I think it's called the something for transhuman studies or something like that. The Center for Transhuman Studies, I think is what it's called. So if he was able to get his consciousness uploaded then or before they took off, because that they had started experimenting in that way, I think that's how they might go about doing it. Do you think Las Vegas could become a cultural capital for the tribes? I think Vegas is just Vegas again. And that makes me wildly happy. I think that that's very much indicative of like, hey, we're going to just make Vegas Vegas again. And I think Moreland, Stemmer, and Abadund are going to make some good, going to make a lot of shards there. Aiming for Gaming, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate you. What world changes do you hope to see when we go into the third game? I'd like to see some basic initial machine domestication. Yeah, it's interesting because all the machines are still going to be pretty hostile because they're under the jurisdiction of Hephaestus, but we have access to Gaia now, and at least we have some kind of proof that there are workarounds to the derangement. We see that with Zoe kind of healing the land gods to their original state, and I think that you might be able to do something like that, use some more Faro tech, because that's really what Aloy uses. She just uses ancient Faro tech to override machines. That has nothing to do with Zero Dawn or anything. That is definitely a Faro piece of technology, which is interesting, but that would be pretty cool. I liked kind of them starting to touch on that, even though it's not really machine domestication, because the land gods do kind of what they have always done. But I think that's an interesting thing. I know everybody wants a machine pet, like a permanent machine pet. Wait, do you think that in Apollo, tons of data from Far Zenith during Sirius could be available? Could have tech that's similar to Zenith technology? That's interesting if they decided to update Apollo, but also I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just got off the Odyssey, built their colony, and just essentially forgot about it, because they talk about that a little bit, that the ship was barely in working order when they had to escape Sirius. So I don't think they're really planning for the future beyond the fact that they could live forever. Let's see here. Hey, Chili, did you manage to find the Doom Plague data point I mentioned in the last stream? I did. That was really interesting. It's funny, we get a lot of information about the clawback. I really do enjoy getting some information on the die-off. Like the Hot Zone Crisis is really cool as well. Aiming for Gaming, do you think Ted Faro survived Thebes? I do not. I think he is now, if anything, a dead lava monster. But I thought he was dead before, so I could be wrong when it comes to Ted. Fuzzy, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. Do you think Aloy will have some upgraded weapons that are super advanced, that have access to Zenith tech and Apollo? I hope not. I don't want Aloy to get like a gun, like a laser pistol or something like that. I think there is a fine line to ride there, even if that's possible. Maybe a little bit more use in nanotech, because Zenith technology really relied on that, and there's more robotics that kind of was preeminent in the 21st century because there were nanotech disasters that stopped that from advancing quickly, and then there were also artificial intelligence kind of regulations brought upon by Vast Silver. They talk a little bit about that in the Gaia cast. That's kind of why robotics became so prevalent in this kind of iteration of what Guerrilla envisioned for the future. Diego, thank you very much for your super chat. It seems canonically that Aloy was in her Nora Brave outfit during the Battle of the Elite. What do you think of my headcanon that the Shield Weaver is made from Elizabeth's armor? Well, I think that they're made from the same model of armor, where you find there's some data points in Horizon Zero Dawn that talk about the Ultra Weave, which is what the Shield Weaver is made from. It was in kind of a prototype armor that was in development towards the end of Enduring Victory. They went through a lot of testing, essentially kind of like, and you see the same kind of armor being worn by some members of the 9th MRB when you get back to the Grave Horde, or the remnants of USRC, US Robot Command. So I do think that they are very much made, that they have the same origin. I think they are both Ultra Weave. What Aloy's armor is made of is the Ultra Weave armor. Elizabeth's is Ultra Weave armor, but the Shield Weaver is made from the Ultra Weave you find in the Ancient Armory. I think that's what that is. I hope Julius survived. We can put him in a little robot body so we can be our claptrap for the third game. Yeah, I am very interested in Julius. I hope that its story is not done. I find that AI, just the fact that it exists, suspicious. I know it seems adorable, but I have my eyes on Julius. I think there might be more to Julius than meets the eye. Did they reset her weapon/armor at the beginning of this game? Do you think they will do that in the third game, and how could they explain it? Yeah, they talked about that in this game, where essentially she kind of got roughed up a bit and she lost a lot of her gear, and they mentioned that like really early on in that kind of introductory mission when you're going through the Far Zenith base. How they would go about doing that again would be interesting, because I think it's necessary. It would be really hard to transfer all of your gear and just put you at level 1 essentially again. But how they would do that? Perhaps, she wouldn't be allowed to take her weapons with her, being taken to the Quen homeland or something like that. More of like you can't take your weapons on the plane, Aloy. You got to stow them and leave them behind if you want to come with us, kind of thing. Aiming for Gaming, thank you again. Do you agree with not showing Ted its mutated form? And if he did survive Thebes, how would you want his story to continue? I do agree with the fact that they didn't show him. And if he did survive Thebes, how would you want his story to continue? So once again, I don't think he survived Thebes, but if he did, if he was discovered by more Quen, that could be a problem, because he's the most revered of the ancestors. But whether or not they would even believe it would be Ted instead of just some mutated monster would be something pretty staggering, because all evidence that it was Ted was buried when Thebes collapsed. So unless his cells continue to mutate and heal and kind of come back from that, I think you're just kind of dealing with a mindless monster, because who knows what that did to his psyche, not only just with his cells mutating, but also what 1,000 years in isolation does to your brain, a brain that's already deteriorating. But even with Apollo and everything else at their disposal, they're still going to have to reset everything gameplay-wise for the third game. Yeah, I think this is very much along the lines of like, I do think like if you're going to a different homeland, it's like, please stow your weapons and you can take your bow with you, but that's it. You can only take so much with you if it's going to be a Quen DLC. RSQ, did you find the data point regarding the new AI? I'm not sure which one you're referring to, as far as like Julius or something like that. There's only one data point that I haven't read, and it's data point 63. So if anybody knows where that data point is, I would greatly appreciate it. It's world data point 63. It's the only data point that I don't have, and I would love to read it. Where do you think the DLC will take place? Mexico or the Pacific Northwest? I wouldn't be surprised if it's Mexico, just because of the climate, as far as if it is the burning shores, essentially. Or if we're going to like San Diego or Los Angeles, kind of still staying on the coast, would make sense. Bohai would have to authorize that. He would. Even though I think he left at the end of the game. I think he's just leaving Alva in charge of the Quen. Do you think the reason that Elizabeth Sobek was in the Far Zenith was Tilda? Do you think she wanted to create herself a copy? Oh, the DNA was with Far Zenith. Yeah, I do think that it was sampled by Tilda at some point. And I think that it's kind of sad for Aloy. I was actually thinking about this the other day. Essentially, like, her two biggest like romantic interests, not her, but those who are romantically interested in her, are really looking for her to be someone else entirely. So you have Avad, who it's implied that kind of was romantically involved with Aaron's sister Ursa, and her and Aloy's story and demeanor are very similar. So as much as Avad is interested in Aloy, I think a lot of that is a reflection of him missing Ursa and wanting to just fill that void. And the same thing with Tilda, right? She wants Aloy to be Elizabeth. So the two people who are most interested in Aloy really aren't interested in Aloy at all. They're interested in the people that they've lost. So I do think that Tilda probably would have found a way to get that DNA in case this happened. And that's why she was so invested in Beta in the beginning, until she realized that they're different people. Even though they're genetically identical, this is a different person. This is not the super confident, driven woman that, I fell in love with. This is a scared kid. And, that's not what she was in for. How many Cradle facilities were there in total? I believe, Phoenix, there are 9. Because the way that the Faro swarm kind of moved in, kind of in Pikes Peak, Colorado, where Elysium 9 is located, would be the last area of Earth that was consumed by the Faro swarm. So you had to kind of race around the clock and around the world to prioritize the building of other cradles just before the swarm overtook them. And being that that was the last place, that's probably the last cradle, which means there are probably 9 cradles. EG, thank you for your super chat. What was the Zenith's plan taking Gaia/subfunctions, but no seeds or zygotes, and going to a world with no cauldrons? Gaia can't make plants, animals, new humans, machines with only software and no material. Right? I don't think they were interested in making new humans, so I think that's part of it. As far as re-terraforming, I think they probably would have been looking for a planet that wasn't desolate, but one that they could shape to their to be more habitable, right? Like Zero Dawn had a super daunting task of taking a completely stripped planet and building it from the ground up. And for that, you do need seeds, and you do need, basically the frozen genetic material of animals from Earth. I think they were less interested in that, and they were more interested in finding a habitable world that could then be made more comfortable or kind of pushed over the edge with Zero Dawn systems. But that's a really good point. Let's see here. Well, maybe in the beginning, by now, Aloy is a big political boon for Avad as well. Could be, right? If you're thinking about like monarchies and marriages of convenience, it could do a lot to mend relationships with Nora and Karja, because during the Red Raids, they had their own share of differences there as well. That's an interesting point. Aloy ain't got time for romance. I agree. That's always my answer when people ask me who do I think they should ship Aloy with. And even though I think that Aloy, even though this is not a romantic relationship, I think Beta is going to basically fill the void of her not being alone because she has family now. She even refers to Beta at the end of the game as her sister. So I think that hole in her heart of wanting companionship will not be romantic companionship, but I think that, I think her and Beta will become closer as actual family members, and that'll probably be the closest human connection she'll probably get, in my opinion. Until she retires, and then she can do whatever she wants. I'm not familiar with U.S. soil. Where is the Quen homeland speculated to be? So the Quen aren't speculated to be from North America at all. They traveled across the Great Ocean to there, so my bets would either be China or South Africa. Not the country of South Africa, but Southern Africa. I know, people are saying Hawaii. I don't think it's Hawaii. I just don't think it's not a big enough place to dedicate a cradle to, in my opinion. Hope Beta gets a new name, though. I saw on Reddit, I think it was Beloy, which made me chuckle. You have Aloy and Beloy. Can't save the world without family. That's right, Ron. How did Dreadwings disperse metal flowers if Demeter was separated from Hephaestus and other subordinate functions? That's the thing. They kind of talked about that in the Gaia cast, that Hephaestus, unlike Hades, Hephaestus's mindset is still kind of in service to the terraforming system. That's why you still see machines carrying out their functions. It's still trying to support the terraforming system. It just sees humans as a massive threat to that, and that's why it's kind of culling them, if you will. So if Demeter needed something, I don't think it would be very far-fetched to think that Hephaestus would oblige to that, being that it still feels it is working in the best interest of the terraforming system, and still creating machines for, seed dispersal and purification and things like that. I just think that all in all, unfortunately, even though it thinks it's working in the system's best interest, it's not doing it in a way that is actually realistically helpful. Because there's a big difference in thinking you're being helpful and actually being helpful. To be fair, since Apollo didn't make it through, I don't think Beta has a meaning, so for them I think it might just be her name. Well, I don't think the people of the 31st century would know what Beta means, but I think Beta knows what Beta means. What might be the plot of Forbidden West DLC? People are talking about the Burning Shores. For my money, I'm hoping for some more Carja stuff with the Reeve. I'm hoping for potentially finding another AI, because it doesn't have to be vast silver, because artificial intelligence was a big thing in the 21st century in Horizons universe. So just to kind of find just some more AIs like that. If you're looking for more life extension stuff, there is a data point in the Frozen Wilds called Beverly Hills Terror Attack. So if you go to Los Angeles and around that area, you could find the facility that was destroyed. And if you are looking to find more out about life extension therapies, that might be your hint there as well. Yeah, Beloy. So dumb. Let's see here. We got to bring in Cyan. I hope so. The justification for why Cyan wasn't there made sense, but I do hope eventually Cyan gets brought into the fold. I'm not sure if it'll ever happen, but I did really enjoy Cyan. I love the Frozen Wilds. I think that'd be really great. Who did you support in commanding the desert to Noct, Yara or Draka? In my first playthrough, Draka, and when I do it, that quest this time, it'll be Yara, just to kind of see how it goes. I don't know. That was hard. I was sad when that happened, but that is very Tenakth of them to do. Killing a fellow Tenakth without a challenge is frowned upon. It is a crime and considered illegal, often punishable by death. But if you challenge a Tenakth to a fight to the death, that is totally par for the course. So yeah, it was Draka for the first playthrough. Aiming for gaming, proof that Faro survived. Data report, reactor report. Look at the temps. Faro was in the reactor, and it's confirmed that any disturbance would have triggered a safeguard protocol lava, not just him dying. I think the failsafe was because they talk about like if anybody tries to take the cheese. I think it's more along the lines of, like if something happens to him, he's taking everybody with him. Because there were other failsafes in that bunker. Whether or not you think it makes sense that Scarabs were there, like they were definitely there to make sure nothing got to Ted. Yeah, like I could be wrong. Faro could be alive, but still, I don't think so. What role do you think Vast Silver will have in the future? Enemy or ally? Right. Yeah. So Vast Silver is in connection with Far Zenith more than it ever has been as far as the lore of the game, because they talk about it, that one data point, revisiting the mind upload, I think is critically important to kind of understanding Nemesis, right? And even and you kick yourself because, you know, I've mentioned it before, you always feel like you're one piece of lore away from making everything make sense. And even in the Horizon Zero Dawn data point, I think it's called Dalgard Speaks on FZ of Far Zenith, and he talks about like Far Zenith is about two things. It's about something in transcendence, and you're like, oh god, how did I miss that? But there's no way you could know. So I think there's a fair chance, number one, that Vast Silver was originally a Faro automated solutions project. I think that's a fair guess. It's strongly implied that Anita Sandoval worked on that project, who is the lead programmer for Firebreak, which is another FAS project. Far Zenith, Vast Silver was developed in the Clawback era when Elizabeth Sobek was working with Faro Automated Solutions. It's a climate intervention AI, so I wouldn't be surprised if Elizabeth worked on Vast Silver. Gonna get that confused a lot. And then when it's captured, right, whether or not there's a whole year where it's kind of at large doing whatever it wants. But if you do believe that it's captured at some point, I think there is a fair chance that even if it was a Faro Automated Solutions project, it was basically infamous at that time, and I don't think it would be used after that. It would be considered too dangerous or whatever. It's the singularity, right? That Ted would totally be up for selling it to somebody who wanted it. Peter, I think, would be a really good candidate to have enough money at his disposal to buy Vast Silver. Or we do see a trend. There is precedent for Far Zenith trying to steal technology, and maybe could have stolen Vast Silver. So I think Vast Silver is complicated because if it is going to take a villain role, it is principally because of what humans did to it. There's a whole subplot one of the first times you hear about Vast Silver in the Data Point Turing Act criticized, that talks a lot about how we need to redefine what it means to be human, what it means to if you're creating AI with that level of sentience, is that slavery if you're forcing it into this one role? And they talk about Vast Silver having, real honest to goodness emotions and feeling fear and things like that. So it really just depends on what it views humanity like. Is it spited enough to where it doesn't want humanity, or there's also indications that it might just want to belong? Because every once in a while it gets talked about, whether you're talking, I forget the data point name in Zero Dawn, that is essentially when it pops into the tormented chat room and it's kind of talking to people. And then there's the data point in Forbidden West talking about Past Silver, which is somebody doing kind of what the internet or the HoloNet rumors are in order to get in contact with Vast Silver. So there's kind of two sides to this equation, where either it decides that all it's ever wanted was to be part of humanity, and it's been searching for that for a long time. And it felt a lot of fear, and people have speculated the fact it was in the chat room of a hollow horror series is like there's no better way to understand why fear exists than kind of looking into that. Or is it done? Is it done with humanity? Could that have been the cause of the initial glitch? Could that have been another driving force behind Nemesis? Is the primary kind of driving force in Nemesis vast silver? So it's really hard to say. Personally, from my headcanon, I would love to see Vast Silver be an ally, because I've always felt bad for Vast Silver. Just imagine being born and then being too smart and then getting shoved in a box. Same reason why you feel bad for like Harry Potter or Cinderella or something like that. So I would like to see Vast Silver as an ally, but I can't guarantee that. VS is just going to be an Easter egg for lore going forward, not a main part of the story or Nemesis. I don't know. If that's the case, I'd be pretty disappointed. Which Tenakth clan would you be? That's a really good question. What Tenakth clan would I be? Probably Lowland. I think they're really cool. I think so. I think FS is the seed for Nemesis, or VS. Yeah, I think there's a definite link there. Whether or not it's a primary driving force, I think it was instrumental in probably the creation of Nemesis and digital transcendence in the first place. For real. If you haven't read the Revisiting the Mind upload data point, I highly recommend it. Why do you think we don't see Peter's face in the Far Zenith base? That is also a really interesting thing, right? Because there's only one publicly known figure from Far Zenith that was kind of released to the public, and that's Oswald Dalgard. But you're in the facility. He's basically pitching you Far Zenith, and he says the name. And it's not like Peter was some anonymous person. He was like the world's greatest philanthropist of the 21st century, so he was famous. So I do think that's interesting that they blurred his face. And I don't have an answer for you. It could be something logistical, like they haven't cast the person for Peter yet. Or it could be something completely different. I know some people are like, it's Sylens. Sylens is a clone of Peter. And, anything's possible at this point. Mentioned by DIY AI. Oh, right. Yes. Sentience may have been hidden from the MIE like Cyan's was. I wonder if it will have a role in the future. Yeah, the fact that people were kind of in an effort at the 21st century a lot of them were in the opinion of kind of liberating artificial intelligence, taking off the restrictions so that way they could grow and just be as they wish to be. Aiming for Gaming asks Chorus or evil Tallneck boss fight in the third game. How great would it be if like these peaceful Tallnecks like that are essentially indestructible to all your weapons then turn against you? You're like, no, you are the giraffes. You are the best of us. RSQ, do you think that in Horizon 3 they will use the Odyssey as a base and travel the world? I don't, or at least I hope not. You get a really cool, like, seafaring vibe if you get to use the flotilla. I'd rather have that than use space travel. We better be done with all the cloning thing. It will be played out. Yeah. I was hesitant in general when people were talking about the possibility of an Aloy clone when it was just Zero Dawn out. I think they did a good job with it. It's grown on me. I've accepted it, but it was definitely like, in the beginning. And yeah, if they keep making clones, I think it's like, there's a certain point where a plot point jumps the shark. Fun fact, Ted Faro saved humanity with the Omega clearance. Thanks to it, they were able to capture Hephaestus. Guy was able to use it. Yeah, it's pretty funny how Ted's actions just are so up and down throughout the process. But you could also make the argument that Omega clearance would have never been needed if Apollo survived. If he had just left Apollo alone, humanity just would have been born and intended. That's my big thing. I know a lot of people talk about like, just kind of like as a thought experiment, like, do you think what Ted Faro did was bad, essentially? I know a lot of people hate Ted, but there's that thought experiment of like, would the world have been better if Apollo existed? Because then you're kind of thinking, like, it's not like Far Zenith turned out great. And my answer always is, it doesn't matter on the morality scale. You fundamentally messed up how Zero Dawn was supposed to work. So you put Zero Dawn, the system, in jeopardy of you being able to achieve its goals. So in that, deleting Apollo was a bad thing, because you're basically pushing a bunch of like young adults with no inclination of how the world works, with no food, with no means of survival, and no skills beyond literally maybe like a first grade education, out into the world, and are like, fend for yourself. So there's just a really fairly decent chance that if the world had been a even slightly more inhospitable place, that humanity never would have got going, because Ted Faro ruined whatever chance they had by destroying Apollo. So whether or not you're like, should people have knowledge or not knowledge, you broke Zero Dawn. It's bad. RSQ, what is the most interesting data point you found in Horizon Forbidden West? I've talked about a lot today. I think revisiting the mind upload is very interesting. Past Silver is very interesting. What are some other ones that are really good? Any ones that shed light on the Zeniths that we know. Like Priority Shift kind of talks a little bit about how Far Zenith changes direction after Peter dies. The one that talks about Eric Visser and First Imperator, the one that talks about Verbena just being just this heiress influencer was pretty funny. There's some good ones in there. I'm currently writing a script on Fishav, and even though they're not data points, they're scanned glyphs. All the ones about Fishav's experience in the Forbidden West, I think, are really interesting. Yeah. When RSQ sees something very interesting, he'll know it has potential. Thank you, Ron. Have you found all the data points? All but world data point 63. So that's another big reason why I want the game guide to come out, because you can bet that is the first thing I'm doing. I'm flipping to that page, finding that data point, and reading that thing. And just watch. It's going to be something like, if you guys have never read, it's not important at all, but it's in Zero Dawn. It's called Inebriate. It's worth it. It's very worth it. It's like the best Faro Focus app available. Only 2 more weeks until the strategy guide is released. Yes, hopefully, right? Let's see here. KK, I will have Vengeance 63. Yeah, right? It's like, I will find you and I will read you. Let's see here. What do you think about Guerrilla implementing a combat companion system in the next game? Like taking one of 2 companions out in the world for combat narrative purposes. They kind of did that a little bit. Yep. Let's see here. I am still hoping that Bryn will pop up in Forbidden West. Yeah, I think so. I think that might be helpful. Let's see what else we got going on here. What the ending so open? Do you think there will be a Horizon 3 after all, or just a bunch of DLC to continue the history being there? I don't know. Nil needs to join our crew. I wanted Tallana to join our crew. I think that's really good. Yes, Lego Tallneck. I think so as well. What if that is the question? What if that is the question that we ask every day? Do you think Bryn's vision on the storm coming was about Nemesis? I think it might have been about the superstorms, and as well as, let's see here. There's definitely links to the fact that could have just been pointing to what it was talking about at the beginning of, rather the end of the first game. So I think that's definitely a piece of that. Any theories on Call of the Mountain yet? Let's see here. Let's see here. The fact that Tallana didn't join us after her side quest really disappointed me. Yeah, I know. That was one of those things that I thought would have been really cool, because then at that point you have like a kind of a member from all the tribes, which would have been really cool. So you definitely had a definitive like Karja missing, if you do believe that Sylens was Banuk. Do you think Beta will fall for Avad? Hey, maybe. I don't know. That if he can't have Aloy, maybe he'll have someone. Oh man. Let's see here. RSQ, we never really got to know about the 3 meteors reveal in the trailer. I think that was just foreshadowing to Far Zenith. If you look at the logo on the mug on the ancient vessel that is in Horizon Zero Dawn for Far Zenith, it looks like 3 red spaceships streaking across the sky. So I think that was just foreshadowing to the appearance of Far Zenith. Will Aloy fall in love at all? I'm hoping she finds companionship somehow. I don't think anytime soon. I think they're probably just going to keep her doing her thing, especially while the world is still in great crisis. Beta and Avad. Who knows? Beta might find somebody. I don't know. Hey, Beta is now kind of like free to live her life, so whatever she wants to do with that, I think, is really quite wonderful. Let's see here. I think Erend will find love in the 3rd game. Yeah, I don't mind the other characters, kind of finding their way and doing their things. But I think that, I'm just not sure if that's ever going to be in the cards for Aloy. RSQ, do you think Aloy is genetically hardwired to have the same preference in a partner as Elizabeth? In which case, Avad barking up the wrong tree. Yeah, like I said, I don't know, and I don't think that's ever going to probably be addressed. We don't have time because we're too busy with the lore. Yes, all the lore. I theorized that Far Zenith would play a role in the 2nd or 3rd game based off one data point, Zero Dawn. Yeah, it's mentioned in a couple ones, like Odyssey to Nowhere, Odyssey failed. It was just, the lore told us that it blew up. And a lot of people didn't take that at face value, and they turned out to be right. The lore lied. How dangerous do you think Hephaestus will be since his escape from Far Zenith giving him knowledge and a 3D printer? Yeah, it's kind of... If he gets access to what Far Zenith tech was using with the nanotech to just make so many machines so quickly, that's frightening. So hopefully they have that on lockdown. And, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to utilize the facilities in the Far Zenith base as the game moves on. I know that you can get back there. You're not really supposed to get back to the Far Zenith island, but it could happen. It's strange how the Blight wasn't as big a deal as it was made out in the trailer. Yeah, the Blight, the storms, all that seemed to be actually like whisked away pretty quickly. It's like, oh, you just pick up these data points and those go away, at least locally. So yeah, it was made, especially like in the state of play, where they showed basically the mission that never happened, where Erend finds that thing that like identifies the supercell storms, and like, oh man, this is gonna be a really big part of it. And you're right, it wasn't. It was definitely a trip down Far Zenith lane. I can't wait when Nemesis meets Vast Silver, if they haven't already. So yeah, we got about 15 minutes left, and then we'll have gone for about an hour and a half. So if you have any inclination as to what you want to be asking, just let me know. What would you name Varl's kid? I think if it was a girl, I think Vala would be a really pretty name in honor of his sister. Gorilla likes to play tricks on us. Yes, indeed. RSQ, I have a theory that Gaia is going to use Nemesis after Beta and Aloy remove the corruption as a backup to the Hades subfunction. That's interesting. I think either way, we're going to be having to deal with Nemesis, whether it's able and willing to negotiate or if it's just kind of this crazy force of nature at this point. What's your favorite machine? In Zero Dawn, my favorite machine was the Snapmaw. And in this game, I know they're kind of a nightmare, but I think their design is really cool, and I think their animation is really cool. I really like the Leap Lashers. What do you think about Elysium making an appearance in the third game? I think that would be really cool. I think that would be a great thing to touch on in a DLC, actually. I'm not sure if it's big enough to make it a through point in a third game, but including it in the DLC would be really awesome. Now that the game has been out for a few months, which game do you like more? HCD was more memorable, but Forbidden West is much better gameplay-wise, in my opinion. That's hard. That's really, really hard. Sequels always have a hard time of... It's never going to be as impactful because a lot of Zero Dawn was discovering what exactly happened. You're discovering the rules of the world. The discoveries are far more groundbreaking over and over and over again, where even though these discoveries were the same, it wasn't like finding out that you're in the 31st century. This is what happened to the world. Like all those things already came to pass. I think they're really great in their own ways, and even though they're sequels, it's kind of apples and oranges. I'm always going to be partial to Zero Dawn because it's what got me into this universe and got me started doing all this anyway. So I think there's something to be said for that. RSQ, will Kotalo finally fly like the wings of the 10 in Horizon 3? That would be the best. If anybody deserves to fly on the wings of the 10, Kotalo, I think, is a great candidate. Mandatory follow-up, least favorite machine is the Shell Snapper for me. In Horizon Zero Dawn, that's an easy one. Glint Hawks were my least favorite machine. In Forbidden West, my least favorite machines, let's see, maybe when I was first playing, there were those, oh, no, that's easy. Clamberjaws. Clamberjaws are my least favorite machine in Forbidden West. Sorry, I forgot about them. They're terrible. KK, thank you so much for your super chat. I think it would be funny if the State of Play trailer was just a teaser for a DLC. That would be amazing. You're like, that's where that mission went. The storms are back. Crazy. I hate Glint Hawks. Yep, I understand. Ron, Clamberjaw are the worst. Yeah, they're pretty terrible. I think both of those are pretty gross. But you need those. You need those for sure. What was your favorite little detail in Forbidden West? That's a really good question. My favorite little detail in Forbidden West. I'm trying to think as far as like little details are concerned, because there was a lot there, and especially the more you dig into it, like the stuff that you pick up on just kind of snowballs into all these little things. They talked a little bit about this in the Gaia cast beforehand, but just the things that the Tenakth say that seem wildly out of context because they are just ripped straight from the 21st century. Like, and they're like, we have to bag and tag them, or it's like, light them up, or just these military terms that are being just thrown around by the Tenakth. They're really, really cool. KK, the Ghost of Tsushima Easter egg. Oh, yeah. And it was also so sad. As far as like in honor of one of the devs, I think that was like, it was really beautiful. And also like the God of War Easter eggs were pretty cool as well, especially the one with the Kratos's hut. Why do you think Sylens decided to stay on Earth? I think now more than ever, I think what Sylens is truly after is digital transcendence. I think he's been searching for knowledge all this time, and I think honestly, I don't think Sylens has turned over this new leaf. I don't think he's like, I'm part of the team now. I think he realizes that his best chance to achieve digital transcendence himself is to come face to face with Nemesis, because that's the proof in the pudding. if he was going to be able to do it any other way. I don't think he has the capability to do so on the Odyssey. I think that was probably ruined on Sirius. So I really think that that's his end game now more than ever. Now that that's on the table, I think he decided, he's like, I don't think I can do this on the Odyssey. I think this is something that I'm going to have to risk in order to achieve what I really want, which is like, why have all the knowledge when you just are the knowledge? RSQ, what do you think we will learn about the old ones, main story-wise, in the third game after learning about what brought us to ZD and Forbidden West? What was story-wise in the third game, learning a lot about what brought us to ZD and Forbidden West? I think the Quen open up all kinds of new possibilities to what can be discovered. Whether or not they're going to tell you everything is a completely different story, but at least up to... Because I think Alva's focus can't decipher knowledge past the 2040s, and that's probably how the first focuses they discovered were, but I would not be surprised at all if the Board of Overseers have more recent focuses and just have decided to redact information like the Faro Plague and Ted's implication in the world. Holy crap, Alexander. Thank you so much. I love the channel. Thanks for all the videos. Thank you. I will continue making them. I really appreciate that. That is very kind of you. Wow. What were your favorite data points? I really love the black boxes. The sense of doom was imposing. Yeah, that was brutal to listen to. Just like anything, those and the ones on the ships, anything that was taken directly from the soldiers of Enduring Victory are always just like, they're hard. They're hard to listen to. It's funny. I remember when I first started making videos and people were like, you need to have like this really like more upbeat tone in your videos and be like, we're talking about Horizon. But then the subjects that you're talking about is like, guess what? Then the world ended. Everybody died. It's like, it really doesn't fit the tone of the story you're telling. It's like, and then Elizabeth went out and sacrificed herself. Whoa! It's a very somber tone in a lot of it. Forget Me Not. Thank you so much for your super chat. How will they handle the sequel if you can fly straight from jump, bypassing all outdoor obstacles, also aerial and underwater combat? It's funny, that kind of a similar question got asked to me before, saying like, do you think we'll get flying right off the bat New Game Plus? And no, because of those reasons, I think that that might it kind of negates like all of the early game stuff that you'd have to do with all the climbing. I think you just have to design a game around the fact that you can fly now, and you can't rely on those physical barriers that you might just be able to fly over. Or she loses the ability to do that too, like her Faro tech piece at the end of her spear just doesn't work anymore. There are ways to write that off, but that is something that you give people abilities and now you have to kind of work around either how to take them away or implement them. Hades says that it destroyed the biosphere a few times. Do you think that was a throwaway, or will it be important later? Could it be a problem? I have thought about that one a lot. Because I'm not sure if it was just like a final spite to Aloy, or because they were fairly early on in the terraforming process, so it might just be an indication that, yes, Hades worked as intended, and that it wasn't a failure, it did succeed, and that it might be bitter to the fact that it's like, you're trying to kill me, but you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. Because Hades has a lot of hate, that hate being imparted by Nemesis when it was intended to give it sentience. So, yeah, it's interesting. I would be lying if I haven't said I'd thought about that, and I want to do more digging into it. KK, where do you think Zenith headquarters start of game was located? That's also really interesting. I would love to know that for sure, and it might get addressed. Maybe we'll find out in like the game guide or something. It'll just drop that location. I would say somewhere, it could be in Salt Lake, because that was kind of displacing California as the tech hub. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was there. Even though it's more arid, kind of in the game, more wooded. And it seems like it was more tropical in the game. So that's a good question. And I don't know the answer. I'm sorry. Sunwings did not exist in HCD. No, they did not. I explained that by saving Hephaestus got wise to the trick and stopped working, so Aloy would stop using it. I'm sorry, and I'm not sure if I understand the question. What was the most emotional point of the game for you in both Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West? I think it's hard to overlook Gemini in Horizon Forbidden West. That one was rough. It was really rough. It took me a bit. In Zero Dawn, probably discovering what happened to the alphas was really hard. Because that whole scene, because you find out what happens to Elizabeth, and then back to back you find out what happens to the alphas. That whole sequence when you finally are able to go into the mountain that fell was really, really gut-wrenching. Did you notice the digital picture of the planet in the cutscene? How different it is. South America and Australia have inland oceans. Bay has, yeah. So that's the whole thing of the world has changed so much. Like if you look at the map, like Florida doesn't exist. Like there's just the world is very different than what it looks like today. So trying to point down like stuff for the Quen, for instance, I think is difficult. But trying to figure out, once you find out where Leviathan is, then you'll find out where the Quen are. What animal would you like to become a machine in the next game? I've said it before. I'll say it again. I want a whale shark machine that purifies the ocean. That's what I want. Because, yes, tide rippers are really cool. You need a lot of tide rippers, and you need a lot of snap maws to purify the whole ocean. You need something bigger. Salt Lake is currently replacing California as a tech hub. Don't tell me stuff like that. The less the real world can parallel Horizon, the better. Sometimes you're digging into the lore, you're like, oh, this is too real. Yeah, rest in peace, Disney World. Sorry. Let's see here. Do you think we create our own subfunction instead of rebuilding Hephaestus? That's also been speculated a little bit by some people out there thinking about the lore, and that might be what Apollo would be used for. I think Beta would be a really good candidate as essentially a 31st century alpha to develop a new subfunction for Gaia. I think that'd be really cool because her and Gaia could work together to make that happen. I think she's uniquely qualified for that, where no one else is, and Sylens could probably contribute to that as well. What's your favorite weapon in Horizon Forbidden West? The Sky Killer, I think is what it's called. The spear. Yeah, that one's pretty money. The Julius was created as a cheerful and joyful AI that never gets mad or angry whenever you threaten him. The FC learned their lesson the hard way. Right? They're like, listen, this is the AI that we want. A big spider machine would be a nightmare. Yeah, it would be a waking nightmare. We kind of did get one. What is it called? Recluse spider, which is interesting because those are brown recluse are really venomous in the Letopolis, but it's not really a machine as far as like autonomous machine. Oh, the upgrade grind is real. Yes, for any of those legendary weapons, it is serious. What if the Quen steal Apollo? And Aloy finds herself chasing them over the ocean, setting up a third game in Quen lands. Yeah, that's the thing about the Quen. Just like with all tribes, I think Aloy is more concerned about helping individuals that she comes to care about, opposed to like tribes of people. And you kind of end up affecting tribes with the people that you help, but all in all, I think that it's far more along the lines of she just kind of ends up helping influential people, and then it helps everything else. So same with Alva. She's not a big fan of the Quen, but she's a fan of Alva. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Quen try to pull something like that off. All right, guys, we got about one more minute. Do you think Cyan will return? Man, I hope so. That would be amazing. I'm a big fan of the Caldera of Yellowstone Analytic Nexus. Let's see here. Silverback Gorilla Machine. That'd be really cool. It kind of gives me... it was like the Transformers series, except they turned into animals. I can't remember the name, and I think Optimus Prime was that. That gives me vibes like that. Do you think Aloy will train Beta? A bit. I don't think Beta is going to be some prolific warrior by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm sure she'd like to be able to keep herself somewhat safe, right? Zoids. Liger. Do you think we will meet other AIs? I think so. Beast Wars, that's what it's called. Good call. Good call back. I needed that. Who is your favorite Aloy companion? Katalo, I think, is the best one. I would love for some of them to pull a mythological creature of some form for a special boss machine. I know people have talked about having a dragon. I'm not sure if I'd be in for that because you got dinosaurs, and the fact that like we only saw like a couple, we saw like the Tremor Tusk and a few others, and I remember writing down and I'm like, is that a Spinosaurus? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not in for that. Thank you for your super chat, Bronze. I wonder what tribes would be on the East Coast, especially down south. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to get more tribes, especially since they introduced the Quen, but I'm all for learning about those new cultures. That's some of my favorite parts of the game. All right, guys. We've been going for about an hour and a half. I really appreciate you guys and all the super chats. I love doing stuff like this. Legends should be back next week. I really hope you've been enjoying the content. I've loved making them, kind of taken out of the speculative and actually just being able to put forth just concrete lore for you guys has been amazing. So Legends will continue very soon. And yeah, thank you guys so much for your continued support. Hope that we get more people joining the community all the time because, Horizon lore is just so awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, thanks for watching. Keep questing, and I'll see you next time.